vinyl resurgence? To us, vinyl never left. Welcome in to the Vinyl Community Podcast.
Straight up, back in the building. Buddies, what's going on? Concert Buddie, back at the ones and twos. I've been kind of absent. I haven't been putting out as much content lately because it's summertime. I got this luscious dad bod. I've got to hit the beach, really show it off, flossing and bossing. But I'm back, and I've got great company for a topic that I think is something that we are ready to talk about. This is Matt. The channel is Vinyl Reckoning. What's going on, Matt?
Nothing, man. Just kind of hanging out. It's a little. It's almost my bedtime. I've got the soul of an 80-year-old. So.
Well, it's funny. We'll probably get into that because what we're going to talk about is a lot of generational discord and all that kind of stuff. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention there's the absence of your partner in crime. Your lady, Stacy, is not here.
Yeah, she's out of town.
She had to
go do out of town stuff. Which is real weird because I think this is the first thing we haven't done together as far as a YouTube couple goes.
Exclusive. What's up?
Yeah, you got just me. I'm not nearly as entertaining. So
that's awesome. No, it's good. Good. So the reason I reached out to Matt is the topic we're going to kind of get into, and I think we'll go in a couple different directions. So buckle your seatbelts, buddies. But wanted to talk about something that I've noticed in the community. I think Matt's noticed too, in the vinyl community and maybe other communities. We'll get into it. Is this notion of what we'll call gatekeeping. And I don't want to get into kind of riffraff and any kind of necessarily negative connotations, but kind of what that means. And I'm going to read the definition because I want to bring some research into the conversation. But the definition, the literal definition of gatekeeping, is quote, the activity of controlling and usually limiting general access to something. So you're probably asking, Concert Buddy, what in the world are you talking about? Gatekeeping and vinyl record collecting? Well, let me set the table. And this may just be something indicative of the internet as a whole. We'll talk about it. But one thing I've noticed, and I've experienced it myself, I'm sure Matt's experienced it too, is people got a lot of opinions. And especially in this hobby, they want to let you know their opinions. And so it's kind of unfortunate because to me, and I think Matt shares the same point of view, record collecting should be fun. It is fun. It should always be fun. And you should be one to share. You show your new finds, talk about music, find new music. There's this little subset of people that just want to let you know they don't like your taste, they don't like what you're collecting, etc. So Matt, in a nutshell, one, am I close to the pin on this? And two, what are your thoughts on this thing? Because again, the community, and any community, and we'll get into it, should be fun, collaborative, etc. And this little bugaboo kind of is a little hiccup in the giddy up. What do you think?
I'm in full agreement. I think you hit the nail on the head. Weirdly, the day you asked me to do this, I saw something that my friend had posted on Instagram. And it said, liking things shouldn't be stressful. And yeah, like I was like, yes, I'll absolutely.
It's like kismet. That's very kismet. Like,
yeah. And it's just one of those things. And I wholeheartedly agree. It should be positive. There's a very fine line on giving an opinion and being a gatekeeper, right? Like I have a lot of opinions, but there's a time and a place for them, right? It's interesting to see the dichotomy between old and new collectors, right? Whether that's the taste in music or the habits that we have when it comes to collecting or the equipment we use, right? Sure. I think there's different levels to it. And again, as my little tag says right here, I'm going to try to be positive, but it grinds my gears, as they say, when we can't usher a new generation into this hobby because of attitudes like that.
Agreed. And I think part of this is grounded, and I think it comes from a lot of different places. And, there's that stereotypical going into the record shop, and there's that curmudgeon behind the desk saying, what are you looking for? Get out of my store, that kind of stuff. There's a guy actually, and part of the reason I want to talk about this, there's a shop in LA called the Record Collector. It's across from Fairfax High School. I don't know if you've heard of it. But if you go on Yelp, and I encourage any listener or viewer to go to Yelp and look up the reviews on the Record Collector. I think it's on Melrose, across from Fairfax High School. There's a guy, I believe his name is Chase. It may be his first or last name, the owner. He's owned it for like 50 years. Has a lot of records. I mean, there's like a crazy amount of records. I've been in there 3 times. But the overwhelming perception, and it's not perception, it's reality, I've seen it, is this is the definition of gatekeeping. Because if you go into a store, if you go into any record store, you like to browse, right, Matt? Do you like to browse?
Yeah.
I mean, because there's things you're looking for, but then there's things the fun is the discovery of something you didn't know was on vinyl or a variant, or a band had a side project, right? Like the serendipity of not knowing, right? Like when somebody's like, "Oh, what are you looking for?" I always say, "I'll know it when I see it," and it's true. But this shop in LA is very unique because anybody, just random, casual record collector comes in and he'll ask, what are you looking for? And if you don't have an answer, he demands, and I'm not making this up, again, go to Yelp, demands that you tell him exactly what you want. And if you don't, he'll kick you out of the store, or he'll verbally abuse you, or sometimes it goes in allegedly, air quotes, allegedly, some really questionable labeling of folks.
That is wild.
And Matt, I'm telling you, and I before I even went to it, I read these reviews online, were out there, and I'm like, is this a real place in the world? And I went there, and I knew what I was looking for. I was looking for James Brown Live at the Apollo 62. I was prepared. So I didn't get a lot of static. I came in, told him he had this guy who was like his gopher who went and climbed in the rafters, found it. He brings it to me. No prices. He's one of those stores with no prices, of course. Looks at it. I would call it a VG at best. He was calling it VG plus. He making it up on the spot.
Of course.
And then he's like double the Discogs like going rate. And I'm like, okay, no, I'm good, thank you. And then he was real short with me, and I left the store. But it's the wildest thing. So anyway, I bring that up because he's selling the building now recently. If you search Google on this guy, and he's wanting $5 million for the building, which, okay, fine. But he's also expecting someone to take over this giant store and inventory and do it the way he does it, which is amazing to me. So anyway, it got me thinking about, it's that stereotypical, someone's a casual collector, new to the hobby, and we'll kind of talk about some of that stuff, like the whole, like, oh, you got a cross turntable, you're terrible. But how can a community, I would say celebrate it, but I think for one, you have to acknowledge it exists, right? But 2, shouldn't the spirit of a community to be inclusive? Matt, help me out with it.
There is nothing better than walking into a record store and maybe being asked that question, but like not treated like that, right? That would scare the hell out of me. I started collecting 22 years ago, so I was like 15. And I can tell you that if my first record store, if I walked in, I'd never go back. I'd give up the hobby, and I'd, inclusivity in this hobby and just general life should be practiced by all, and it's not. Which is absolutely insane to me, sure. Right? Like I've said this to you plenty of times, with so many people being interested in the format now, whether that's young, old, what have you. We're getting so many represses, and I think that's the best thing ever for a 15-year-old kid coming in wanting, a Zeppelin record or a Beatles record or something newer. And a shop being like, yeah, I got that. By the way, if you like these bands, you'll love this band. That is so integral to keeping this community alive. And it's happening. And I've had experiences like you just spoke about recently. Stacy and I both went to a record store. I will not name the name, but it was the first time, because I don't know what age we start using Yelp and like taking it too seriously, but I was like, I'm going to go to Yelp. And then I was like, I am old, but it, it's such a radical experience to be treated like garbage when when all you want to do is give this establishment your money. Like
Right. Right.
that's wild.
Yeah, I think it's funny you say that because I've run into some shops, and maybe you have too, where you question, like, what is the main intent of the business? Is it to make money? Is it to are you on a work release program? Because exactly what you're talking about. Because you go in and again, I'm not trying to take a dump on a bunch of businesses, but customer service, if there's any, is lax. Two, exactly what you're kind of talking about is they make you feel like you shouldn't be there. They don't want you to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then to your point though, you're like, hey, I just want to. You're a business. I think you want to make money. I want to give you money.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you get these records from somewhere. I've been in it. There was a shop, I think it was in San Diego, that I felt like that too, because I went in and it was, curated just so. But it was one of those things where like bins are super tight, no prices. Like you're really, it wasn't very advantageous to somebody who's really wanting to get down to digging. And I think I asked a question about something, and I thought I was inconveniencing them. You know what I mean? Like they were clearly very distracted on whatever they were doing, Sudoku or America Online chat room. Who knows what they were doing, right? But it was like the antithesis of, oh, hey, yeah, exactly what you're talking about. If you like this, or no, we don't have that, but maybe you'll like this. And there are shops, like I'm sure we know several that we won't name here, but there are shops that are just like that. Mm-hmm. Make it a great experience. But then there's these shops like we're talking about that you almost regret walking through that door. Actually, you probably do regret walking through that door, right?
Yeah, there are so many missed opportunities, just community wide when you have an attitude like that. Whether that's a customer, whether that's discovering a new band, I can't stress enough how like I swear I'm on a personal mission to just like end gatekeeping. I never will. It is a failed mission already.
Sure. Walking uphill forever. Yeah.
What's that saying? Kicking water uphill. That's what it feels like. But it's just you just want to shake them sometimes. You just want to be like, do you not see? You gotta see it, man. Like.
That's funny. Well, do you think, and because, obviously record stores have been around for longer than we've been around. Do you think part of this, in part, is fueled by, and not to make this a conversation on the internet, it's a whole other topic, but at least it contributed to a lot of the, let's call it, what they call it, Schadenfreude, the nefarious activities of keyboard gangsters who live online and, because I'm sure you've been you probably go to the same places I go, subreddits on vinyl and so forth. And there'll be people who are just sharing information. Oh, hey, here's a variant of X band on Amazon or wherever, blah, blah, blah. And all they're doing is sharing information, nothing more, not saying they love it, you should buy it. Here's the link. And then you read the comments below and it's like, terrible taste, bro, go kill yourself, like all that kind of ridiculousness. So my question is, do you think it's just where we are at as a society that it's this switch that maybe has always been part of our DNA, but only has been amplified by the internet echo chamber of just making somebody feel terrible for sharing something?
Yeah, this is why I stay clear of Reddit. Truly, I do. It scares me a little, but yes, I think it is just a product of having information at the drop of a hat, right? And it's a product of these people who maybe weren't listened to in their day-to-day life have an audience now. So, let's see what kind of rise I can get out of these people. Then other people just truly believe what they're saying, which is fine. Your opinion is completely valid, but it's just like have some self-awareness,
Sure.
I love music that other people would be like, this is awful. And I get that.
Same, right.
Totally get that. And I respect that opinion. but like, you don't need to tell me. I'll make it clear that I know that before you even tell me. So,
or try to bury you in it, like literally you've drowned puppies or something just sadistic, just because you like a band that, like, I made the jokes. I went to the Limp Bizkit show when they came through last week, and I was very self-aware, and I knew I'd get some ribbing. Corey Feldman opened up. I'm like, of course I'm going to this, and fully ready. I was like almost ready. Yeah, of course. I was almost ready for the firing squad. Fortunately, I think most people I told like know me, right? But that's a perfect example. I was like, oh, this is fun. I had a good time. It was for me. Ample opportunity for these people to just annihilate. Annihilate.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have a lot of cool stuff to share, and other folks with that attitude can keep them from sharing something that might be life changing, whether that's, a band. I mean, we can expand outside of the vinyl community, but keeping it in, like, because I'm a recovering gatekeeper myself.
Oh God! Oh
Yep,
no!
everybody, watch out! And I missed out on so much good music that I could have discovered in my 20s. Now I'm pushing 40, and like I'm just discovering all this stuff that I was like, man, if I was like 19 to like 25 and I heard this, I would have loved this. But yeah.
Do you think that part of that? 'Cause I know exactly what you're talking about. I went through that stage early in my life too, where I was like, "There's no way I'll like this," and then along the way, opinions change. Like Patrick Swayze said in Roadhouse, opinions vary. And but what part of that do you think? Because I think one thing I run into a lot is what's called music snobbery, where kind of what we were talking about before. Like you like something and you fully expect other people to either get it, don't get it, and that's okay. But for whatever reason, there's like this guerrilla movement of, like, I think, let's use Mumford and Sons for an example. There's a YouTuber who will remain nameless who just went on a diatribe once. I like Mumford and Sons. I've seen them live, and again, not for everybody, but sure. And this gentleman went on this rant, and you would have thought that maybe Marcus Mumford stole his girl, something. It came from a very interesting place, but it kind of speaks to this gatekeeping thing of, anybody who said, oh, Mumford and Sons isn't bad. No way. You're invalidated. Your opinion's not, it's like, whoa. What is the root of this? It really is a head scratcher.
Who hurt you is the real question, right?
Exactly.
I'm on your side on that. I enjoy Mumford and Sons. Is it something I go to on a regular basis? No, but I've never like shut their music off when I heard it. I'm like, oh, this is good. I had a buddy once, a little bit of a gatekeeper, nothing crazy, but he referred to them as the Nickelback of folk music, and it made me chuckle a little bit. But then I'm like, dude, you go write songs. You go sell millions of albums and then come back to me and tell me a band sucks and tell me all this. Like, I used to play bass in like a bunch of hardcore bands, but like I'm not good at bass. That's why I was in hardcore bands.
Right.
And like it's the same thing. Like you go write a song. I couldn't write a song to save my life. I couldn't. And we should be fostering people's talents and
aspiration, right?
Yeah. And we're just not as a society. I don't know if you know this. It's pretty hectic in the United States right now. Yeah, weird, right?
Weird.
And like, if we could just like overshadow that negativity, like for an instance, we could be seeing so much cool stuff, but we're just not.
I agree. Well, I think I said it earlier in the open, but to me, I think the quintessential gatekeeping label, if you will, of the vinyl community is the Crosley turntable. That's a joke, and I get it. And and I think everyone who is on the level knows. But to those that then take it as an extension of a disqualifier, like to me, if somebody's new to the hobby, like we talked about, you want people to come into the hobby. More people makes it better. Obviously, there's more competition. It's a little bit different. But you want people to be able to find and celebrate and enjoy the music they love however they can. And a lot of times it's that Crosley turntable. And yeah, it's a running joke to an extent. And, again, it's okay to have fun with it. But I'm sure you've seen some of these commentaries from folks. And again, maybe it's indicative of the internet as a whole. But, I mean, people get annihilated, especially on social media. If they take a picture of their record, their vinyls, that's another one. People just kill people for saying vinyls. I mean, come on.
Oh,
but
who cares?
An LP on a suitcase, one of those smaller suitcase Crosleys. And again, it goes back to what crime against humanity did this person take other than trying to play music, trying to share their enthusiasm for, I've got my first record player. Because how many times do you hear there's people who buy records now that don't even have a record player? So here's somebody who has a record player, Crosley, okay, whatever. And we'll kind of talk into that equipment thing. That's another thing I want to touch on.
Sure.
But that is the quintessential to me, the gatekeeping of the vinyl community is when that Crosley joke comes up. Here comes the mob mentality. Have you seen that? And do you agree? It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I see it all the time. I have friends who own Crosleys because they're like, "Oh, what record player should I get?" And I was like, "Well, first find out if you're going to stick with it. Don't go out and spend thousands of dollars on something you're just not going to be into in 6 months." Doesn't bother me. They'll be like, "Hey, is this good?" I'll be like, I'll give them an honest opinion.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, what works for you works for you. Right. Cause I think, it's a whole other subject. But I think we're on the cusp of hearkening back to the people who own or are collecting records don't own a record player. I think not only are we buying music, we're buying collectibles at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And let them, if they want to listen to it on a Crosley, who cares? They're allowing me to get albums I want reissued.
Right.
So that's the positive of it all. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent.
No.
Who cares? And talking about vinyls, it's a word, man. Who cares? There are so many bigger things to be worrying about.
Sure.
And I am just speaking of inside this hobby. It does, when I was, at the Southeast Game Exchange.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it. So real quick. So Matt and I were talking about it, and I've noticed it. So there are other communities. I know it's hard to believe. I know you're listening to Vinyl Community Podcast, but there are other communities. And one of those that I have a loose understanding of from, again, a little passive hobby I've had before is video game collecting and particularly retro and carts and all this stuff. So Matt's had the good fortune because he's of a similar ilk, and he's in that community to a certain degree. So tell us, you just came from a show, and do you see a lot of this, again, gatekeeping in the vinyl community we're talking about in that community as well?
So I just came from the Southeast Game Exchange, which is a vintage video game expo type thing. Me and Stacy are, for some reason, we got adopted by that community. Awesome YouTubers, we hang out all the time. There are, in my opinion, more positive folks in the YouTube community than there are negative folks. I think the gatekeeping still exists. It's just not as prevalent, right? Because, at the end of the day, we're all nerds. And we're gonna run into nerds who think they're nerdier than other nerds. You know what I'm saying? I know more than you. I will say there's much more positivity and, how do I say this? Uplifting spirits in
Mm-hmm.
that community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why we started to gravitate towards it. That and, a couple of the dudes are in some really talented bands.
Okay.
Obviously they don't talk about it, and we talk music a lot, but I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but there are some people within that community that I knew nothing about that are just making videos kind of dumping all over my friends in that community. And I didn't know that. So I started watching them and I'm like, yeah, I just can't surround myself with this negativity. Like, it's wild.
You bring up a really interesting point, Matt, because that exists. Obviously, I've experienced it firsthand. My little tagline is kind of an homage to that, because there is one. Before I get into that, there's kind of, I've noticed, at least in the BC, there's a community, but then there's like these little sub communities, call it satellite communities, right? And that's fine. It could be centered around gear. It could be centered around audiophile pressings. You know, there's all these different things. But then there's a subset of people who, what they have in common is loathing on others in the community, which, okay, on the surface, as weird and as unrelatable as that is to me, fine. But to your point, it's only when you see that, and I've been the target of some of this, and that's not what we're here to talk about, but it's so counterintuitive or counter positive to what I would think any community would want to be, right? Because again, we all have the same baseline. We like music. Some people like some things, other people like other things. But the fact that exactly what you're talking about, that regardless of community, there's communities just predicated on dumping on other groups in the community. It's bizarre. It's bizarre to me.
I just can't imagine. You ever just like sit back and just go like, you must, like, how is it to be like this? Like, you must be a hit at parties, dude. Like, it's
the belle of the ball.
I'm not the most positive person at the end. Like, you know, when it all boils down to it, I'm sure some people would say I'm super negative. But it's like you said, it's just bizarre to see somebody like getting their lifeblood from just like dumping on other folks. I feel like that energy could be rerouted into something productive, but I don't know. I just go to therapy. I'm not a therapist. But you know, it's this is such a rabbit hole. Like,
it is. Well, what do you think? And I don't know if you've experienced this. I personally am telling on myself here, but when you plug in, or you look behind the curtain and you see that negativity, especially when it's pointed at you, and I'm just speaking from my experience, it's almost like a magnet, because then you want to understand, and this is maybe more gaslighting. Maybe we'll talk about that in a second. But when people say things completely unfounded in your opinion, or like criticism, whatever, somebody doesn't like me, whatever, somebody's opinion of me, it's none of my business. But when you're putting it into public square, so to speak, and you found like-minded people who then are just like, Chance is the worst, or, you know, Matt's taste in music is abominable, it's almost hard. And I found myself like pulled into that, like, hang on a second. One, I think it's human nature to be defensive.
Of course.
And two, I'm a competitive person. I grew up in team sports, and I want to be like, oh, okay, I got one for you. And to me, exactly what you're talking about. It's you're using energy that could be used elsewhere for better things, content, record collecting, information share, what have you, because you're dealing with these fools. And that's something that, if anything, I would highly encourage, because I know there's a lot of people, and I hate to say it, there have been people chased out of this vinyl community in similar fashion. And it's ridiculous. I think it's, you know, because I've seen this, talking about collecting for 20 years. You've probably seen it too, the rise of the message board. Mm-hmm. From the early days of the internet, you know, you had these little chat groups and all this kind of stuff. I feel like this kind of groupthink has always been like a little vortex in each of those little boards, communities, all that stuff. But now it definitely feels amplified, especially as like you, like, you're putting content out there, putting your face out there. I mean, there's nothing better than seeing somebody vilify your face. I'm here to tell you, Matt. Really gives you a real good feeling in the morning. But regardless, I'm a big boy. It's not about me. But it is chased. That kind of behavior has chased people from the community. And that bothers me, because that's the antithesis of why I'm doing what I'm doing, and think you're doing what you're doing. Because we should be bringing people along. We should share best practices and, you know, information about where to get records, and like you do your record store tours and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to, here comes the gang mentality, mob mentality, and then we're just going to push people out of community and then on to the next. I've seen these groups chase people out, and then it's a speed bump over the body. Now we're on to the next one. And It's wild. What do you think
I
about that?
think, I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I think, how do I say this? There, we shouldn't, like, kind of talking about what we said earlier, right? Like, liking stuff shouldn't be stressful. And I find that when I do give an opinion, again, there's a fine line between an opinion and gatekeeping, but it's really hard to give an opinion now without sounding like you're gatekeeping because of those who came before us that have ruined certain aspects of this community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it takes like one big, I guess, for our world in YouTube, right? You got to kind of have thick skin,
Yes.
right? I had people at the convention that I was at be like, "Hey, I like your content." I was like, first of all, that's weird. Second of all, like they were like, "How do I start making videos?" And I'm just like, just do it. You got an iPhone, just go for it. Like, people aren't going to watch your stuff, right? Like, we need someone with that attitude that has 20 million followers that is just like, you can do it too. Figure it out. And that the same goes for collecting in general. Just go out, do what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, the only person you really have to answer to is yourself.
Right.
But yeah, like to be on YouTube nowadays, you got to have thick skin, right?
Yeah, that's the piece that exactly your point. When people have come up to me and are privately, I talked to a guy the other day who's kind of new, and he's been on YouTube, he's been on some live streams, but hasn't really done his own content, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was just asking privately, like, "Hey, what advice would you give?" And it had to learn it the hard way: is be prepared for random opinions that make no sense to you, that defy logic to you, and just keep on moving. You know, it's like I went in March to the Arnold Schwarzenegger like bodybuilding class. Long story, but it was in a room with Arnold, and he's giving a speech. And one of the things he talked about, and I don't know why I don't center more on this because I really should. It's great advice. Is like there's always going to be negative people. Keep moving because all they're doing is holding you back from what you're chasing, the greatness that you could be, you want to be, you should be. And it's so true because, like I was saying before, like once you get a peek of the curtain of what these people are saying about you or the community or your tastes or whatever, it's a human nature element of like, what did I do? Well, you know what I mean? I'm trying to, but it's a complete waste of time. It's the human, you got to ignore the human nature of it and just keep on pushing. But the same goes to, like we're talking about, people in the community who just want to talk about music, just love talking about music. They got a Zeppelin 2 RL somewhere and they just wanted to share it with somebody. And then here comes 50 people who are like, way to go. And then here's that one. Here's that one that is like, that's not VG Plus. You know what I mean? Like just something ridiculous. And that can set people spinning. And it's unfortunate because, again, I think our overall message here is like, it should be fun. And when it's not fun,
why do it?
Right. Oh, yeah. 200%.
We're on this earth for a very, very short time. Enjoy the hell out of it. And when someone comes to me and tries to ruin that, like you said, human nature, I want to be like, what was that? But at the end of the day, it's not worth my time. I still think the only time like my let's be defensive kicks in is because, you know, we are a YouTube couple, right? Like by definition, is when someone says something about Stacy, I'm like, all right, like let's all right, the gloves are coming off type of situation. But at the end of the day, like the gatekeepers lose 100% of the time because what's that saying? You catch more flies with honey. It's just I don't even really fully know what that means, but let's just go with it. And I've made so many friends. Whether that's in the YouTube space or whether that's just like people who own the record stores around us. things like, and those are the people you want to be friends with. Those get serious because they're the ones who be like, "Yo, I just got this and check it out."
That's a good gatekeeping. That's the kind of gatekeeping you want, because when they get a collection, they're like, "Hey, man, before I put this out, any interest?" Yeah. So
yeah, we had one of the worst experiences at a record store recently, and to the point where like we weren't going to drop the video. Like we did a video on it, and like it wasn't like bad, but like it was enough to be like, maybe we shouldn't put this video out. Like sort of situation. We ended up doing it, and you know, it was a whole thing. But it's stuff like that. It's like, dude, like, why do you own a store? Like, I was talking to Dylan from Noble Records about it, and he's like, yeah, he goes, it's free advertising. Like, at the end of the day, it's free advertising for your small business. And I was like, I didn't even think about that. But it's just like, why do you own a store where you have to talk to people? If you're gonna be like that, it's people are mean, dude. Like, it's just, people are so mean, and they don't have to be. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I will make fun of my friends all day.
Definitely,
but like, it just have some compassion and some empathy, and this truly, it's going to sound so cliche, but this world will just be a better place.
I mean, you're not wrong, Matt.
All right, I'm not.
Well, let me take a slight turn, because this is one that, you know, I was kind of thinking through this, and it's, you know, it's one of these kind of buzzwords of the current culture, gaslighting. And it's something that, you know, I hadn't really heard it come up in the context of the community until maybe last couple months. And I have to go in. I'm gonna go to the definition, because, you know, I heard it and I've heard the term, but I wasn't real familiar. So I want to be this level set. So gaslighting is a slang term that refers to the act of manipulating someone into questioning their own reality. And so I think understanding that, kind of what I was going back to before about people being chased from the community to never make videos again, to delete their accounts, all for what reason? I do the shoulder shrug. Doesn't feel right. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, like, don't, like, why are we bullying people? Like, right, as adults, why are we bullying people into deleting their channels in the first place? I guess is the biggest question. But it also, like, it kind of goes back to me saying you got to have thick skin, right? Yeah. Like, I've gotten some mean comments on our page, and we're not a big channel by any stretch of the imagination. And I was just like, man, if I was like a tad more sensitive, I'd probably delete my whole channel. But yeah, like, what satisfaction? Like, I wish we had somebody here that, like, you know, was a gatekeeper, so we could just ask, what satisfaction do you get from bullying someone to not making content? But you know, I guess my question for you is, are these people that are deleting their channels, whether that be hypothetically or not, are they deleting them because they don't want to do it anymore, or because of the gaslighting and the questioning, should I even be doing this? Or
to me, the ones that there's one gentleman who I won't name that did this and still has a social media presence, and I hadn't seen him post in a while, so I reached out to him to say, hey, you okay? You know, because sometimes life, right?
Yeah.
And you know, he kind of shared the story with me, and in essence, it's like we said at the open, the fun was gone, and you know, for all the things we're talking about, the connectivity, the relationships, the connections, the experiences that far outweigh any of what we're talking about from the negative sense. He just couldn't work past this little ball of negativity, and it ruined it for him. And I thought that was so unfortunate, because, you know, again, it was very early in the YouTube journey, and seemed like music I wasn't very familiar with. a lot to offer, I thought, right? But the fact that unfortunately ran across whoever, whenever, however, ruined it for the guy. And so to me, that was just really disappointing. And like I said, go back to this gaslighting thing. Again, I have this little tagline, not a genuine record collector. There's someone out there who doesn't like me, and that's fine. And I've kind of gone back and forth with this gentleman. It's actually somebody who I actually interviewed for the podcast. So I'll let people do the math. And this gentleman felt that the way to hurt me was to, well, first of all, I don't believe anything that this guy was saying at me, right? I want to be very clear.
For sure.
Yeah. It didn't hurt my feelings, but I found it very odd. And one of the charges was not a genuine record collector. And the comment was, yeah, all the record collectors I know think that you're a fraud and you're only surface level and all this stuff. And so at first I was like, hang on a second. I've never really thought of myself that way. Maybe I'm lacking self-awareness. Mm-hmm. And then I remembered it was rooted in this, whatever this is.
Yeah.
And so I've made a running joke. My wife thinks I probably say it too much, but that's the only way I handle these things, because I know it's so ridiculous that I want other people to know how ridiculous this is, because I've been doing this 15 years, not the YouTube thing, mind you, but I've been collecting records and I've learned a lot, made a lot of mistakes. Hell, I made a mistake the other day. I opened a sealed record. Sorry, folks, I'm telling on myself. I bought dead stock, hadn't opened it. I should have opened it right away. I opened it to clean it and processing my whole collection. And it was 2 discs, and wouldn't you know, I had 2 of the same discs, 2 discs 3 and 4.
Been there.
Right? It's the worst. Yeah. And it's a $150 record. So I'm like, well, it's out of print, it's $150. Open your records, folks. Just saying, open your records. But regardless, I'm still learning. And I acknowledge this. And I try to share these follies even at year 16, 17, because I think it's important. I think that's what the community should be based on. I think a friend of mine in the community is going to make a video of similar ilk and share what I just shared here because I told him this. And to me, that's what we do. We educate each other. We share the experiences and make your own conclusions. But I did find it interesting that when you get to a point where that's calling someone not a genuine record collector is the way you want to cut them.
Yeah.
Again, is what it is. But it's okay. And then because in my mind I started wondering, well, what other record collectors are you talking? You know what I mean? It's a human nature. It's like, But then I realized, hey, man, this guy just doesn't like you. And it's okay.
There's from Tom Segura here, there's like a bit he does, just like talking about arguing with his mother. He's like, I just agree with her. And I'm like, yeah, that's sort of how I approach things. Like, not a genuine record collector? Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah,
and just
definitely.
Like move on, you know?
I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have no idea. Yeah, I'm just that guy.
From someone who questions their reality on a regular basis anyway, it's just like, dude, it's gotta be a simulation. Anyways, no, there is not a single person in this community or really outside of it that could push me into questioning what I'm doing.
Sure, of course.
And I think that stems from like a lifetime of being bullied until I was a teenager. But like, I love collecting and I love other collectors. I love seeing how people collect. I love seeing what they collect, even if it's something that I don't care about. Mm-hmm. You want to collect precious moments, like little ceramics, by all means.
Ooh, sure.
Yeah. Let me see your collection. That's dope. But if we allow ourselves to let other people's opinions of us influence what we do, we've lost.
Yes.
I mean, like, don't go out like hurting people, but like at the end of the day, if what you're doing isn't hurting anybody and how you're doing it isn't hurting anybody, live your life. Truly. It's
life's too short, man. Yeah, I'm with you. The last piece on this, and we'll send you off to Nap Town. I know you're ready to go to bed, because you're
so old.
I love grandpa naps. Grandpa naps started for me about 10 years ago. I'd come home, long day at work, I'd eat dinner, and I'd just fall asleep. And it was glorious. And I'd wake up about 9 o'clock and I'm like, oh, I'm up now. Put on some music. have another couple hours awake, and I go to bed. It's great. So grandpa naps, I'm with you.
I'm going to try the grandpa nap.
Last piece I want to talk on for this conversation, Matt, is inside the community. Like I said earlier, there's these little subsets of communities, either based on taste, what they collect, 45s. One that I've noticed a lot of, and I don't necessarily, it's probably part of the reason I haven't gone too deep into this subset of the vinyl community, is the audiophile equipment people. Right? Because like we were talking about with the Crosley and you know, to put a bow on that one, like, hey, however anyone starts in the hobby, tip of the cap. I think we're all far from that first turntable,
of course,
at this point. And if you're not, you will be, right? If you stick with it and you enjoy it, and you get a lot of satisfaction from the hunt and the music you listen to, probably not going to keep that Crosley, right? That said, the equipment people are, I think, another level, because that's the ultimate qualifier, disqualifier, because especially when you're talking about shootouts, comparing, A-Bing, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the stuff is a lot of just whip it out and throw it on the table. Well, I've got XYZ. No. That's not as good as JKL. You know what I mean? Like, and to me, it's made me, as somebody who is curious about upgrading equipment at various steps. Like, I like my setup and I'm not in a rush. But to me, that's always been that door I don't want to open, because one, is expensive. Okay, let's say that, once you start getting into these two preamps, this, like, it can be tough. But the other part is that, like, if I were to, and I do have some people I trust that I could get information from and not be judged. But in terms of crowdsourcing viable information otherwise, that's the piranha field, man. I don't even want to play in it. Have you noticed this? The gear guy, let's just call him gear guy.
I think I have very little experience with people like that, but the ones I do aren't inherently gatekeeping, but they are. And I'm not going to talk trash, because there is no trash to talk here, but my future brother-in-law, he's not a record collector, but he is very much an audiophile.
Okay.
And when he talks to me about this stuff, my brain is like the background right now. It's just like so gone.
Yeah.
I'm like, you could tell me anything right now and I'd believe you. People have pooped on my setup, and I think I have a pretty decent setup. And it just boggles my mind. I'm like, hey man, guess what? I don't want to spend $3,000 on cables. Like, that's bonkers to me. One, Stacy would kill me, and two, I would spend that's so much money. And if you can afford it, great.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm proud of you. But like, again, it boils down to like, let people do what they're going to do. I have a friend, Seth, who just bought his first turntable. I think it was like an Audio-Technica LP 120 or 60. I don't remember. And he sent me a video because there was something going wrong with it. He's got the turntable, the receiver, couple speakers, and that's great. I'm so that's awesome. I've been trying to get him to collect for a couple of years. He's been talking about it. And I think that's great. Is it my setup? No, but that's my setup. Is that working for you? That's great. But guess what? You're going to have to spend $5,000 to maybe get 1% better audio quality. It's just no. That's half my car payment that I have left. I'm good.
Right.
I'm good.
That's what I've always found amusing. I get it, but like if you go on the Hoffman forums, for example, and a ton of people on there, in their signatures of their, whatever they post, they've got their gear as a qualifier, right? And so I read that and I'm like, oh, cool, you've got an Ortophone Black. Okay, great. You got some JBL 100s. Great.
Yeah.
But does that mean that like your opinion is, like you said, 1%? You know what I mean? I don't know. I always think it's as a qualifier. And again, gear guys, not shitting on you. More power to you. In a lot of respects, tip of the cap, because I just can't. I can't go there. But at the same time, for the people who don't want to go there, doesn't mean we're wrong, bro.
Yeah, it's just like my speakers. I have a JBL A180s. I love these things. I love how these sound. And I've had people be like, "Oh, well, you need to get these," and I look at them, and they're like $20,000 speakers. I'm like,
Sure.
what? I rent, dog. Like, where do you think? What are you doing? Like, no, my speakers now are too big for an apartment, and I don't care, but like they sound great to me. And I think if I could leave this episode with one thing, it's just the old adage: "You do you, homie." Like
coming soon to the Concert Buddie merch store T-shirt. You do you, homie. Is that with a Y? I always get okay. Yeah, I'm gonna quote you, Matt. It's gonna have your name on it.
Oh, okay, and I'm fine.
No, it's good stuff. No, man. Hey, listen. Let's put a bow on it. Good conversation. I'm probably going to get killed for this one too. Probably going to say I'm too sensitive, but it is a conversation. Yeah, is what it is.
I'll be by your side, dog. Let's go. People hate me so much. Like, it's wonderful.
I got them. These are for the tears of my haters. I got you. Scotties. I don't have Kleenex. I got the Scotties. Scotties party over here.
I have a wet nap like right there. But I'm saving that for me.
No, but I think we're on the same page, and I think if anyone takes anything from this, be kind. And just remember, if you're an avid collector, remember where you were 3, 5, 10, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, if you see this abhorrent behavior, maybe counteract it. Maybe you see somebody being chased out of the community, maybe say something. I kind of wish had I known what was going to happen to the guy I told you about, I probably would have. And it's unfortunate, but unfortunately, I think with any community, it's going to be prevalent. It just so happens that this one we like so much in collecting vinyl records, it's the one we're talking about right now, good, bad, or indifferent. So Matt, Vinyl Reckoning is a channel. If you don't know Matt and Stacy's channel, what is wrong with you? I'm gonna gatekeep on you. What is wrong with you? Is great production value. Like I said, I love the store tours. Great chemistry. Stacy Cam is my favorite feature. I wish it was in every video. But anyway, Matt, Vinyl Reckoning, I'm so glad you could join me, sir.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
And that was another trip around the turntable. Thanks for listening to Vinyl Community Podcasts.